Hey, good evening. Yeah, we're every week we're gonna add a new video and a new video. So by December, it's just gonna be an hour of 30-second clips. So it's gonna be a lot easier to do. All right, everybody. This is Explain Yourself, the live broadcast and the podcast on the Geek Collective Podcast Network. Still insanely surprised that they allow us to come on and hang out with them, and thankful. So thank you to the Geek Collective. Tonight we have a large group, and basically Rob Moltari is hanging out with us, even though he doesn't have a campaign to talk about. But why are you joining us? I think the audience should know.
Yeah, so my wife's out of town, so I get to stay up late.
You know, like if you get the hall pass, you got to use it.
Right? So I'm sure I'm going to regret it tomorrow when my daughter wakes up at 6 in the morning.
That is very, very, very possible. Will, how are you doing this week?
It's been a long week. I don't know if I'm up for a marathon like last week, but I'll give it my best, man.
Start brewing the coffee. We got Jared Lujan. Jared, how are you tonight, bud?
I'm doing well.
Well, now we're to the people with Kickstarters running. So, Jared, can you give us the 30-second elevator pitch of your campaign? We're going to get into it a little bit more seriously in about 5 minutes. But what are you running so the audience knows?
Yeah, so I'm the writer and co-creator of a book called All the Devils Are Here. The book is a 44-page horror-infused action thriller one-shot about an exorcist named Juan Carlos Garcia, who, in order to exorcise a demon, has to enter the shared consciousness of an elderly man named Joe Morris, who's been diagnosed with dementia and is also possessed by a demon. So it's sort of like, I think the best description I've heard has been like Dreamscape meets Constantine / Doctor Strange.
No, I got to read the first 15 pages of it, and I'm going to give you my honest critique. I want to spoil that, though. I absolutely loved it. Now for something thematically similar, Clay Adams, what are you launching?
Very, very similar thematically. Yeah, it's a horror comedy Western. It's called Deadskins. It's Blazing Saddles meets The Walking Dead. A Harvard dandy and his blind drunk companion are all that stand between the Old West and a zombie apocalypse. This is the true story of Custer's last stand. Whatever they taught you in school is bullshit.
Nice. And
is this a family show? Is this? Can I say that? Can I say school? Can I say school on this show?
You can say any words you want to say, as far as I know. We start at 11 o'clock. You can get Randy if you'd like.
This is prime time. Hey.
Darn tootin' then. Let's go for it.
And we have some special surprises. We've got Kat Calamia and Phil Falco. They're coming in. So you guys are representing which Kickstarter campaign?
Bi-Visibility. We are here. We're ready. And yeah, it's a bisexual anthology. And honestly, it's so easy to explain this book because that's all I have to say. Because what else is there to say besides it's a bisexual anthology? There it is. Phil, do you want to add anything else?
You have the 3-second elevator pitch. I love it.
She'll probably give you a couple of paragraphs if she needs to as well.
No, I'm not going to because I don't need to for once.
Well, that's awesome. We are going to, I think we're just going to do this in order of appearance. Jared got here first, so Jared, let's go a little deeper into All the Devils Are Here while I pull up that screen. And like I said, you sent me the 15-page preview. I definitely saw the Dreamscape vibe, and I'm into it. I'm into a lot of things I want to get into about the character, but I'm going to let you intro it while I pull out that screen.
Yeah. So a lot of it is like centered around sort of the dementia aspect came from my grandfather. And his last few years of his life. A lot of this is actually really based and rooted in my actual life. A lot of it deals with the loss of of Joe Morris's life, which happened similar happened to my grandfather after my grandmother's death. His dementia got severely worse. But I think of it as a story about the power of love, loss, and memory. Things that I don't think in terms of memory, I don't think it ever comes into, like a real, the power that something like that happens until you're watching someone struggle with the very small things and really desperately latching on to the only thing they have left of some parts of their life. So, but yeah, and it's the story. I wrote it around the time after my grandfather's death, as I was dealing with it, dealing with all of my family's struggles and everything that came with it. And yeah, it's sort of me. I think I like to think of it as me eulogizing my grandfather in some way, while also like getting to do weird, cool looking things in the book that I was fortunate enough to convince Matt Harding, who is my co-creator and the artist on the book, to kind of get on board with. And Matt is crazy. If you can't tell by the pages you're seeing, he is an absolute madman. The book is only the book is only this good because Matt had his hands all over it. But he's done an amazing job. I couldn't have imagined making a book like this. And it helps that he has a personal tie-in with his own grandparents having a dementia element as well. But yeah, it's a it's a very heavy book. I'm not going to pretend like, if you've heard me talking for the last few minutes, you can probably get that vibe. It's a pretty heavy book, but it's also really, really fun, and it's pretty cool at the same time, I hope.
It's really fun. You've got basically an exorcist who enters the mind of the man suffering from dementia. What can you say about the voices that the exorcist communicates with?
They are integral to who he is as a person. That's kind of like a spoiler if I delve too much into it.
Okay.
But the bottom line of it is that there's definitely something a little bit extra to our main character, J.C. Garcia. He's definitely got a little bit something special kicking around in there. But you'll have to back the book and read it before you can figure out what exactly those things are and why they're kicking around up there.
Basically, all right. So that's cool. I'm cool with keeping our things close to the vest. Your artist, all of these demons in there are intricate and weird. And did he go back to scripture type things to create the visualization of these demons, or is this just straight out of his bonkers head?
It's straight out of his head. I would give Matt, my scripts are really loose. So if I have something that I think is like narratively, thank you. If I had like something that I thought was narratively important, I would make that clear. And I would say, hey, we need to make sure this looks like X or Y or Z. With Matt, I pretty much had very few direct notes on what I wanted things to look like. And I just kind of let him run with it. So our main villain is a demon named Corson, and he's got a crazy look that we've kept it scrubbed off of the Kickstarter page, so that when you like read the book for the first time, you get to see what he actually looks like for the first time. And he looks real wild and crazy. And Matt sent it to me, and he, like artists do, right? Artists do something like magic, right? They do this crazy sorcery, and then they send it to you, and they're like, if this is okay, that would be cool, but I can make changes if you think it sucks. And I'm like, no, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Like I don't want to look at anything else now.
Blake, how are you, buddy? Yes, we're filling up the screen. I think this is it for the night, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Ignacio, how are you, buddy? Welcome back. Yeah, so we always celebrate when we get a backer out of the campaign. So that's you came up as Facebook user, so can't thank you by name, but you're the best. And anybody else have anything you want to delve into? Now, this is a one-shot. Would it be a spoiled question to ask if there's any possibility of new chapters in this universe?
No, it's a conversation Matt and I have had actively about doing something extra down the line. Matt and I have already decided that we're going to work on something else for next year. So we're teaming up on something completely different, and hopefully we wrap that up. I've got two books, two Kickstarter campaigns I'm running next year, and one of them is a follow up to one I did earlier this year, and the other one is the new thing with Matt. So I'm kind of just we're kind of just picking the time and the scheduling that'll work best for us if we end up wanting to. Like I said, this book was super personal and it's super close to me, and I wrote it at a really particular time. I'm not positive I could go back to it and sort of pick up on it in the way that I did when I wrote it the first time. So I don't know. We'll see.
We've got a very specific question for you.
Blake, if I told you that, it wouldn't be revealing anything. It's not fair to do it to you, man. You know, but maybe there is maybe some conversations going around about another Twin Blades.
All right, let's check out. We're going to go from a deeply personal and important story to a deeply personal and batshit crazy story.
I heard what you were about to say, Kevin.
We all
Just
heard
say
it.
it. Just say it. We all heard it. We all finished the sentence. Yeah, exactly. You know.
Well, dig me out of the hole that I tried to.
I'll be Rodney
get myself
Dangerfield
into.
over here. Yeah. No respect. How would you like for me to dig you out of that hole? I'd like to see you twist for a while, but that's okay. Yeah. So yeah, what do you want to know? We're this is Deadskins. It's a horror comedy western. That's our cover by Tina Valentino and Dario Tallarico. I can never get these Italian pronunciations correct, so forgive me if I slaughtered that.
Boo.
Yes, sorry. Thank you.
Listen, you've got to get Tallarico right because that's Steven Tyler's real last name. So
really, is that true? Is that a true story?
Steven Tallarico is the real name of the lead singer of Aerosmith.
Get out of here. So get this. So my kids, when we lived in Atlanta, they had a dentist named Dr. Bon Jovi. And it was the original spelling, right? It was Dr. Bon Jovi. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't know how we started talking, but I found out, he's from Jersey. So I decided like, this has gotta be John Bon Jovi's younger brother, who's now the dentist. And then, so every time I'd walk into the office, I'd get give me something for the pain. Some Bon Jovi song stuck in my head. So anyway, what the hell are we talking about? We're talking about my comic. Okay.
Yes, we were talking about this blood-stained train ride that I remember from Deadskins #1. So this is
right, the
number
unimportant 5. Comic. Yes.
But I got a question for you.
Bring it
Can
on.
people who are hearing about this first time get issues 1, 2, 3, and 4 in this campaign?
Oh, but of course, my friend. Yes. Yeah. So so this was a comic that we did originally like in 2013. I think we wrapped it up in 2014. And we've kind of remastered it a little bit, darkened the lines to help it print a little better. This is gorgeous art by Leila Del Duca. And yeah, so we started doing that 2 issues at a time. So we've got collections of issues 1 and 2. Then we came back to kickstart issues 3 and 4, and this is issue 5, which is a little bit longer than the other regular issues. And then we've got some little bonus material that we're putting with it as well. But yes, of course, yes, you can catch up. You can catch up digitally. You can catch up printily, and yeah, whatever you want. We aims to please.
Clay makes money using words, by the way.
I do. Yeah, I get paid by all the ones I create.
We love having you, Blake. Blake likes to pop in on Fridays and see where you can spend his money. We've got 3 great places this week.
Absolutely.
So what was the primary inspiration to Dead Skins? How did you and your writing partner come up with this a masterfully important piece of literature?
Well, so Kevin, you had a great pull quote. What did you say? It's like Robert Rodriguez directed an episode of Deadwood written by a horny Seth Rogen.
Yes.
I think that sums it up. I mean, that was our inspiration. My co-writer on the project is Alexander O. Philippe. He's a documentary filmmaker, a documentarian, if you will, Rob. And he's Swiss French, and he just loves like Americana.
Does this mean he's got a bunch of arms?
Yes. Yeah. It's very strange, and then like a toothpick in his ass. It's very odd. But yeah, he loves Americana and like and westerns and all of that kind of stuff. And so we were talking probably like in 2005. I was actually acting in a movie that he was directing. A movie called Shadow Walkers, which I think is streaming on Tubi TV or something like that at the moment.
Oh, nice.
Anyway, he and I were talking, and he really, at the time, like, he was in love with westerns, he was in love with zombie movies, and he wanted to do some kind of mashup. And this was like, well before the zombie western became like a thing that you saw like everywhere. And so we kind of started working on it slowly but surely over the years, and I don't know, it just kind of snowballed. We wanted to do something we bonded originally over Preacher comics, okay. So we knew that we wanted to write something kind of in that vein, that sort of like outrageous humor, but also maybe with some heart. And yeah, we had a blast doing it.
Well, your Custer is awesome in this. He's
thanks.
He's 3 feet tall.
He's a little Yosemite Sam ish. I can't say he's directly inspired by Yosemite Sam, but he is.
I would say you've got a lot of heart, a lot of intestines, a lot of things that can be disemboweled.
Brains.
This might be the goriest comic I have kickstarted.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Oh, I'm proud of this. Okay. Yeah. That's a lot of blood. Yeah.
And it's black and white or blood. Where did that decision come?
You know what? It's funny because there are 2 different versions of this book that exist, because we actually had a totally different color version of it. So a guy named Brett Nienberg, he's an artist based in Denver, and he does a lot of stuff in film. Out in Denver, and I think he's worked for like Lego and places like that. But he did this whole crazy color scheme for it that we now call the Painted Desert Edition, and it's just like wild, vibrant colors, and like each issue had its own thing. Like in issue 5, I remember there was some whole page that like all the colors blended together to like make this American flag, but it was like it was blood and some other stuff. Like it was a very cool look. But it kind of like it kind of de-emphasized the storytelling in a lot of ways. And so at a certain point after we had released it all digitally like that, we kind of looked at it and we thought, this is super, super cool. But what if we went back to our original thought, which was black, white, and red? Mm-hmm. And I don't know exactly where that color scheme came from. I know we're not the first people to do it, and I know there are other comics that have kind of done that. But we sort of liked that.
City.
Yeah. I guess kind of the Sin
Yellow
City.
Bastard. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that was kind of the inspiration for it, and so we changed it. We went from this like crazy vibrant color scheme to now this sort of like more muted, but with the splashes of red, which looks really cool. But if you're coming at it from a comics production standpoint, it's really not very smart, because what we basically have is a black and white comic that we have to print as a color comic.
Yeah, and it's what, about 40 cents a page more?
Yeah,
or at least a nickel a page more. So it ends up being
hurts.
Yeah.
So the publisher in me is kicking myself, but the comics purist loves the look.
No, I mean, this is. I always put kind of disclaimers like this is a R-rated. This is a Adult Swim. There isn't a sophomore humor thing that won't be touched and found. So
yeah, if you like Preacher, if you like The Boys, if you like Rick and Morty,
if you don't like somebody who fucks his horse, don't back this comic.
Donkey. I just want to be totally clear. Yeah, donkey.
I apologize.
Yeah, we don't condone fucking horses. Donkeys. That's another matter entirely. But stay away from the horses. Yeah, that's right.
It is funny as hell. I just want people to know what they're getting when they get it. So definitely get it, but know what you're getting.
Good point.
I also want to talk now. We've had the Oreo cookie. We've had a very personal story. We've had Clay's. Let's talk
the unimportant comic.
The other chocolate wafer of importance, Phil and Kat. Let's talk about your anthology that is very important because you're putting something out there for a group of readers that may not see themselves in a lot of comics. So let's talk about the Bi-Visibility Anthology for a little bit.
Yeah, I'll start off and then I'll pass the baton to Phil. But Bi-Visibility, it's funny because we are part of a group together that most of these people are part of, that our happy hour that we do monthly. And this is like something on my mind for a long time. I was like, I really want to do Bi-Visibility, bisexual anthology, but I'm like, I could do it later, right? And you guys were the ones who really pushed me and said, like, what's stopping you? Why don't you do it now? And now it's kind of a big conversation. And you're like, yeah, why don't I? So this whole year I worked on Bi-Visibility, and it's 9 stories about bisexuality, ranging from fantasy to romance, and super proud of the book, super proud of the Kickstarter. And then I pulled in Phil to be my assistant editor. So I'm gonna pass the baton to him to talk about his experience on the book.
Yeah, it's not the first time Kat and I have worked together. We're pretty good friends, and we had worked together on a crossover between
pretty good friends. We're not we're not best friends or anything. But
he's in the top 5, probably.
We only talk to each other like every hour of the day, but we're just okay friends.
It's all business talk though.
It is.
I'll keep going before she interrupts me again.
That's why you love me.
Yeah, that's why I love you. I can't even remember what I was going to say now. Okay.
We were talking about Bi-Visibility.
Yes, we had worked together before. I'm the assistant editor. We had worked together before on a crossover between our two respective series, and we had such a great time with it. And we're both queer creators, so a lot of our talking points whenever we would talk business would concern identity, especially like queer identity and bisexuality, since Kat is bisexual. And one day the idea kind of popped into her head, and she was like, I kind of want to do like an anthology. And I was like, yeah, that's a very natural next step. And like she said, everyone in our network was very supportive of the idea. And I think it just appeals to a lot of people. Bisexuality, a lot of queer identities, but I'd say bisexuality in particular is pretty underrepresented in a lot of media, but comics especially, and especially they made some headlines recently with the whole Tim Drake story. But especially when the idea first came to Kat's mind, there are plenty of characters who are categorically bisexual or pansexual, but the identity aspect of it doesn't really play as much of a role, so much as the relationships they're in. So one thing that really appealed to me was delving into the identity, not just who you are with, but how your sexuality, how bisexuality affects your identity, your vision of yourself and your sexuality. And we got so many great teams to tell so many very diverse and different stories. It's been a really great ride.
So how did, as an editor and assistant editor, you've got stories pitches coming in, how do you figure out, and because there is only so much space, you really can't have a 300-page anthology. I mean, I guess you probably could, but you want to.
Sounds expensive.
So how do you figure out how to balance your different stories? You know, if you get 3 stories that are superhero framed around it, are you forced to pick 1 or 2 of the best ones? How did your thought process go when accepting pitches and putting the stories in the book?
I thought we would get a lot more slice of life than we did. Like stories about coming out or just like drama stories. And we got a few of them, but we didn't we actually got a lot of like different genres. And I would say lucky enough, the books or the stories we enjoyed the most were the ones we added in. It wasn't like, oh, we need this genre. I think we were just lucky in this regard. We are planning on doing a volume 2, and I don't know if we'll be that lucky. We might have to pick and choose a little bit more, but yes, genre was at the forefront and the people telling the stories were at the forefront. But honestly, we were just lucky. It really was the best stories that we read were the ones that were included.
Yeah, I would definitely say that it was something we were conscious of going into looking at all the pitches, because we were getting complete scripts. We weren't getting just outlines. We were reading each script, and we had a big Excel sheet. We were keeping track. What's the genre here? What's the general tone? What's some like high level themes and like aspects of bisexuality and identity and diversity that are captured in this story. We approached it knowing that we're building an anthology, we're building a cohesive work here. We need to make sure that we have diverse genres represented. But like Kat said, in the end, all of my Excel skills went to waste because the stories we liked the most just so happened to be a perfect mix of what we were looking for. We got our romance, we got our fantasy, we got action, spy thriller. We got the whole package that we were looking for.
That's awesome. Trish, not you're welcome for letting you join. Thank you for joining us. I mean, come on.
Thanks.
If you are watching, please put any questions you have for any of the creators that are running a Kickstarter in the comments. We'll try to answer them. The best thing we can do here is answer your questions about either the campaigns or just comic creation in total. So no, thank you for joining us. And I see before the show, you're backers of one of the projects, hoping to get another one this week. That's beautiful. Thank you for backing whichever of the campaigns you backed, and hopefully one of the other 2 or both of the other 2 sounds good to you too. So
Mike they're very big indie supporters, and I've seen them around, and they're part of my pack. So I'm glad to see that they're out here watching and supporting others as well. Mike, who's Trish's husband, likes to drop the links. We call it the mic drop. So I'm sure he'll probably put that in there somewhere. So thank you, Trish. Thank you, Mike, for watching.
Hey, Kat, when you, I know you kept the submissions open for, was it a month or 2 for this? Did you just kind of get? I mean, it seemed like you were getting a lot of submissions. I know when we were, chatting around that time.
We did get a lot of submissions. It was we got over 100, and we were stupid enough to do it all in a weekend. So the limit it was a crazy weekend.
We sat together for about 20 hours. We took like a 6-hour break to sleep and shower, and then he was right back to my apartment, and we were just sitting there going crazy. But
we definitely enjoyed the experience. All good, crazy. I honestly love the experience. We both did, which is why we would do another one. But we were stupid. We really shouldn't have done it in one weekend. And now that we're doing a volume 2 and people have heard about the book, I have a feeling we'll probably get more submissions. So we're gonna try to break it up a little bit better than we did. But yeah, we got a ton of submissions and a ton of different submissions. And one thing that I think we would have gotten even more submissions if we didn't do the script thing, though. And I'm kind of happy, and I think I will keep doing that, is you have to have I would say the editing process was a lot easier because there was a finished script, because we knew what direction was going in, and then you could tweak here and there, and you could hear their voice. But I enjoyed it doing it in that way and having the full
And you
script.
truly know if someone is offering a 6-page story that it's a 6-page story. That they don't tell you it's a 6-page pitch and then you get a 19-page story that you can do nothing with, which I know have been some anthology horror stories I've heard about.
Or like, the pitch sounds awesome and then maybe the comic doesn't do exactly what the pitch wanted. Like, I think that's a struggle as well. So having the script in front of you, also, it just shows that they want to do the project. I feel like it's easy to write a log line, but it's not easy to write a 6-page story, especially in the time frame that we wanted them to do it, which was like a month and a half. So if they're finishing that script in a month and a half, they're probably going to be relatively easy to work with. And I think that's why everyone meshed so well, was because we got people that needed something at a deadline and they met their deadline. And when we actually made the comic, everyone met their deadline, which is why this book was finished as early as it was.
Yeah.
And thank
Well,
you.
definitely agree. We were working with about 20 creators and in total for this project, and every single one of them was great to work with. And I think part of that is just because of the process that Kat outlined. I think definitely we would, even if it's a little more work for us reading entire scripts than versus having an outline or a log line, I think that's the way to go, because you get the people who are passionate enough to actually create something and flesh it out and send it our way. And then it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. There was editing involved for every story in the anthology, but it was great getting a fully formed work to decide to see how that fits in with everything else we were
And the art too. Like
And
which
the art,
artist we were gonna join with. Like if you have the full script, it's a little easier to be like, oh, that artist would be good for this story.
Yeah, we had 2 spreadsheets up: our artist spreadsheet and our writing and our story spreadsheet. And
Phil's gonna get that fucking Excel in one way or another.
I
He did.
love Excel.
Excel is
my
awesome.
baby.
You hush your mouth, Kevin.
It's just okay. He told me to do Excel for so many things. Like, you haven't made an Excel sheet for that? I'm like, no, I just have it like on notes.
Well,
He's
she's
like,
doing all this
horrible.
consulting work, and I'm like, oh, how are you keeping track? And she's like, oh, it's all in here. And I'm like, get an Excel sheet.
Excel's
I got an
good for
Excel
the,
sheet.
rewards too. Keeping track of the tiers when you put like the rewards in there, it helps you
Oh,
figure
definitely.
out like the pricing for the tiers.
I'm with Kat. You guys are crazy.
Well,
Just-
Kat
just
gets
do
the
it your way.
benefits of all of my Excel sheets because of all the projects we work in together. Each one of them has a little Excel sheet, all the planning.
I don't have to put it together. At least he's putting it together. Honestly, he's doing it for projects that he's not like even on. He's like, I'll make you an Excel sheet. Don't worry. Like I can do that for you.
I love Excel.
Blake
You
says
really
that
do.
Microsoft is sponsoring this episode of Explain Yourself. We're
I'll wait for
gonna,
my paycheck.
yeah, we're gonna get Bill Gates this one free and hope that it gets him addicted. Well, Clay, they're not the only ones who've done an anthology. So
Yeah.
when you hear them talking about their process, you did Nightmare Theater. What was your process running your anthology? Did you do it the same way? How did you go about it?
Ours was very different because, and by the way, ours was almost 300 pages. I think it was
Okay.
272. So it can be done. And honestly, a lot of that, a lot of the reason why it was so big is we did not take submissions. We did not do open submissions. It was mostly my co-editor Dave going up to people he had tabled with at a convention. He's got a book with Action Lab called Baby Badass, and he had been all over the country, tabling at these cons and meeting all these great creators. And he was like, I don't know, I kind of want to see if some of these guys want to do an anthology. And so he, for the most part, kind of pulled in the creators, and this is very true. He for the most part pulled in the creators, and then I kind of tried to like plug some holes where I felt like Kat was saying, you want to have like a diverse array of stories and fit different genres. Like we were doing a horror anthology, and so we wanted to hit certain subgenres. So I was kind of pulling people in that I thought could like fill some of those gaps, but what was crazy is that like he asked a ton of people thinking that most people would say no.
Okay.
And like almost everybody said yes. And then the stories started coming in, and they were fantastic. And it's like, well, we can't, like, there's nothing here we'd cut. Like, this is all just fantastic. So our process was a whole lot different, I think, than this one. But it's interesting because I'm listening to you guys talk, and I'm taking notes. Like, oh, maybe I should get an Excel spreadsheet.
And maybe
get Phil to work on it, though.
I think I might. You know
what? I might do it for fun.
Ooh, I like that. I like that even better. Yeah, and so it's kind of the same. We're doing a volume 2 right now, and it's kind of the same thing where we haven't really opened it up to submissions. We've opened it up to a different pool of creators because we know more people now. We've got some returning champions. And stories are starting to come in now, and then there's going to be a mad scramble to finish the book and put it all together and make it cohesive. Deadline pressure really like helps you put something together like this.
See, I'm curious about this because I've never really written for an anthology. Jared, do you have any experience with anthologies as a writer or putting it together?
I did like all of the anthologies this year, I think.
Everyone?
I did. I was in the Yule anthology, which was organized by Grant Stoy. I was in Off Into the Sunset, which was organized by Brent Harshman. I was in Fab Breakout, which was from Story Worlds. I was in A Cold Dark Universe, and I was in Deadbeats 2, which is supposed to release in the next couple of weeks. So I've done like a ton of anthologies. I like doing anthologies a lot, as a matter of fact. I really like I don't know if I like can ever see myself as being the ongoing story guy. I really like getting in there, messing a bunch of stuff up, and then just bouncing, just leaving,
Nice.
So anthologies let me do that. I get to tell, like Off Into the Sunset, I got to tell a Western that takes place just right after the Mexican-American Civil War, the Mexican-American War and the shifting borders. And I didn't think that had been something that was touched on. Yeah, and then in Yule, I got to tell an Aztec horror story that I had a bunch of fun doing and diving into the lore. And so I just kind of got to go in and do what I wanted to do and then leave. And that's kind of something that I really like. With my first Kickstarter, Twin Blades, we were trying to do an additional mini anthology because my pitching point for Twin Blades was Mexicans with swords. And that's just sort of like picked up with people in a really big way. And so I was like, oh, I've got a bunch of other friends that are Latin in comics. I'll just get all of them together and then we'll tell a whole bunch of stories that are just Latin American people with swords. And unfortunately, we didn't get to do that. And I think that was my own fault. I think it was a little bit too ambitious for the first Kickstarter. But that's definitely something that I want to go back to and revisit because that was super fun. We got pitches for everybody. We told everyone not to write anything, don't do anything because we don't know what's going to happen. But the pitches were pretty badass. And so I really would like to go back and see if we could do something bigger and more formal for all of those guys.
So I'm like the complete opposite. Like for me, getting into anthologies was kind of like a scary thought because I like the long drawn out storylines and I enjoy writing for the long game. Since I've been serializing my book. But so Clay last year had actually approached me about doing Nightmare Theater, and I turned it down because it was something I've never done before, and I was afraid to actually dip my toes into it.
And it made us want him more.
Clay either.
So
that too, yeah.
Yeah. So, but afterwards, I regretted not, and I know, but before I think it was also too. Not only was I afraid I didn't have the time. So I think whenever I legit kicked myself in the ass. Like I just should have bit the bullet and did it. So this year, I whenever somebody was like, "Hey, you want to do it?" I was like, "Yeah." And then I wanted to get back into Clay's, thinking okay, well, if I ever have a good story, I want to drop it in there. And I had this nightmare, right? So and it was about and without getting into too much detail, it was basically a nightmare that was inspired. It was just events that happened around like a father and a daughter. Kind of basically, it was me and my daughter in the dream, and it was one of those dreams you wake up crying, right? So like that very next morning, like I had the pitch in my head, everything, like, and it was like 5 a.m, wasn't it, Clay, that I had messaged you, and I was like,
very early.
Yeah, I was like, because legit, like I woke up from the dream, I was crying, I was just like, I have to tell the story, so I had the pitch and everything, and I sent it to Clay. I'm like, hey, if you're gonna do volume 2, I need to be in it, right?
This, by the way, is why you do not give Rob your phone number. Yeah, you give him your email address, not your phone number.
I have every one of you on Facebook.
Yeah,
Rob was working on this last year too. So,
I mean,
He was a little busy. Yeah,
Yeah,
What a gorgeous
the
book.
Nightwolf hardcover is actually the closest thing I've ever been into an anthology, because I have a 4-page little short that Rob invited me to play in his world with, and it was kind of like my try at an anthology, because he was like, all right, I want this character to go from A to Z, but you get to pick B through Y. And I was like, all right, so thank you. Your book is my anthology, because I'm like you, I'm a little afraid and I don't really know where to start or end. So
I felt bad too, because like you got 4 pages. Like I did a 4-pager for Travis's new Cthulhu Invades Wonderland. And that was tough as it was, but luckily it was a very minor character, and it was kind of relative to like what I'm doing, because I did the Bandersnatch, so it was very
language.
So it was a beast, very low key. Like, so I didn't have a lot of words, but like it was all about like the action and everything when I scripted it out. But when I was doing like for Clay, is like I was crammed an entire thing. Like I could have made this into a series. And I crammed it all into like 8 pages, and I'm still like, and I just handed it off to him today. And I'm like a first draft, rough as can be, and I'm like, it's probably got my dyslexic written all over it.
But that's cool that you say that though, because like we want like, because it's a love letter to horror movies. So like we want you to tell us a horror movie, in 6 pages or whatever, So if you feel like you're cramming a lot in there, that's probably a good thing.
Well, I think I managed to. I mean, my artist is probably going to hate me, because like I probably like usually I'll throw in like a 1 panel per like in there, or like even like maybe just a few to kind of be able to play around with. Now, man, I was like 6, 7 trying to fill those panels up with the action, just because there's so much like for this particular story, and I had to tell it, and this to me was the way to put that in there. And like I said, cramming that in, I was just like, oh my God. I was like, I had to go from like, I started at the end, went to the beginning, and I kind of went back and forth, filling in the pieces, trying to hope that I would meet in the middle without sacrificing anything. And luckily enough, I added like, I think 2 panels. So I ended up with 2 pages with 7 panels.
So Rob took a 5-issue miniseries, and he just put enough panels on every page to just tell it all.
Hey, let's not make fun of it.
The movie The Road, and I crammed it into 8 pages.
Great.
Luda would tell you that's pretty much how I write. If you get to page 20 in the script, and I realize I've got about 12 more pages that I need to write to finish the story. We have a lot of 14, 18-page panels at the end of the book.
God.
Like how I wrote Snowpaw too. I started with the last page and went back.
I'm not even worried about artists at that point. Like I write the words panel 7, and I'm like, man, the letterer is going to send me an email. I'm going to get yelled at. I got to figure this out, because that's like the person I'm always terrified of upsetting. I'm terrified of upsetting the letterer more than anything.
The letterer will let you know about it.
I'm the letterer for this one.
Yeah, Rob letters his own stuff, so he's good. And I work with DC Hopkins, who's probably the nicest person in comics. So I do probably get away with being a terrible, terrible writer, just because DC is such a great dude. But I understand what you're saying. You're right.
And Clay is a letterer, so there. He did you letter Deadskins?
No, I lettered the Painted Desert edition. So the original version that we did that we put up online, I lettered that. The guy that did the lettering for this version is a guy named Charles Pritchett. He's actually now he's working for Aftershock. I think he does a lot of their logos. He's their designer, I guess their in-house designer. And he's great. He's fantastic. I met him through Jay Ferber. I think he did a lot of Jay's stuff like Noble Causes and some of those books back in the day. But he did a great job. I mean, he basically followed my balloon placement for the most part. But kind of like he designed sort of these cool, like rough balloons to sort of get that. I don't know.
They're very unique. I'm gonna pull that screen up because you're right. Deadskin's balloons are extremely unique.
While Kevin's pulling that up, Kat, did you and Phil go with a single letterer throughout the anthology, or are there different letterers?
No, we went with Taylor Esposito, who I love working with. I think he's so great. And we actually had a couple of people. We have a letterer who wrote one of the stories, but I was like, I really want all the lettering to be consistent. And I've worked with Taylor in the past. So I was like, I really just wanted someone I knew I worked with. So yeah, a lot of people asked like, oh, can I letter it? Can I letter it? I said, no, we want one consistent letter across the board. And then we had one consistent logo designer as well. So all the logos you see on every single story, and yeah, we made a logo for every story. We are crazy. That is the same logo designer. So
we trapped ourselves. We got to keep doing that now.
I know. Honestly,
whatever you do the first time,
we did.
But it builds a familiarity of the person reading. It's not as jarring because you already have the art changing.
Right.
So, but having that subtle, I think it was a very smart choice. And Taylor's obviously quite a pro. So, I mean, you've got somebody who knows what he's doing. I think it's a strong choice.
And also it's really quick. Honestly, Taylor's so quick.
Absolutely.
If I'm not mistaken, y'all got the logos done by Letter Squids, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to get Justin to make work. You got to get him to make a logo for every single one because they all rule. Like he's so good at them. Like
good.
Wait, is Letter Squids a guy or is it a company? Because I see that.
I thought it was a squid.
It's one guy.
He's a squid.
It's one squid. It's in the
is that your
Very
Swiss?
confused.
Is that your Swiss Frenchman, Clay?
Yes.
Yeah, no, Justin, he is one squid. He did such a good job. He also did all our trading cards, and he's also very quick. I feel like that's like the one of the most important things of lettering is obviously the actual lettering, but also like I guess from a publishing standpoint, it's really nice to get lettering that is like, oh my God, like we gave Taylor a slice of life because we're doing, spoiler alert, we're doing a physical version of our webtoon. But we wanted a different letterer than the webtoon lettering actually, because it's a different vibe. It's a traditional book instead of a webtoon. So we got Taylor to letter it. And then I was expecting, he said, I'm going to be done this date. I thought he was going to be done with the first chapter. He's like, here's everything. Here's 50 pages.
44 pages for
what?
the
I was like,
That's
thank
amazing.
you.
Yeah, I actually with Snowpo, I hired Dave Lentz. It was the first time I actually worked with somebody other than myself.
You recommended Dave, who's doing our trading cards this time for Bi-Visibility.
And he's very fast too. Like matter of fact, when I approached him, he like had half the book done like the next week, and I'm like, dude. Yeah, it was amazing. I actually consider like, okay, maybe I should step away from Nightwolf and let him letter it.
We get a comment from Ignacio. I just finished a 50-page comic, and the panel average ended up being 7, and it wasn't easy, but a couple of 7-panel pages is fine. What do you guys look at your panel counts per page and think, oh, I need to diversify? When I look at it, I always think I've got to diversify. I realize these 4 are all 5 panels. I need to muck around so it looks different. But how do you guys go about that?
So like I start off with a template. I have like a 24-page with 6 panels set up ready for me to start writing. So whenever I go to save. And as I'm writing, I'll either shave off a panel or two, or even, depending on what the situation is, or I'll add. So but 6 is usually my starting point, and I'll go down or up from there. I don't go usually more than 7. But typically, like I said, I do like to have where there's maybe a big one with maybe a couple small ones in, or to kind of go those action shots or emphasis. But in general, story, I like to have a nice flow.
What was it? It's Fables where it's always 5 panels, right? It's a 4-panel grid and a big one on the bottom, almost every single page of the entire Fables series, which is it's an interesting way. I mean, they did 100.
That is hard to do that, though. You know what I mean? You legit to be able to have that same setup the whole way through. He has to be planning that.
And they did that with that Legion of Superheroes reboot way back in the day. With it was Keith Giffen was the artist, and it was Tom and Mary Beyerbaum, I think, were the writers. Yeah, and that was mostly a 9-panel grid, right?
Okay.
And I don't know. It's interesting because you can tell a lot of thought goes into that, obviously to make that happen. What you lose is that you can't get these big explosive action panels. Mm-hmm. And so that's I try to mix it up. Deadskins has, because it's one of the first, actually the first comic that we wrote. There are a lot of panels on that page. There are some that's I think we have a 9-panel page, maybe even a 10-panel page at some point. But I'm trying to be more conscious now, keep it around 5 or 6, 7 if you have to. But I'm thinking too now, I'm very conscious now of how can I take a couple of panels that I've written and combine them without losing the impact, but still get the information across. Because I think because I come from the world of film, my brain wants to go to close up, close up, close up, close up, close up. And it's in a comic, I think that gets super boring, and you got to think of ways to sort of mix that up. So I'm really working now to just try to combine things and compound them and keep it to 5 or 6.
I feel it depends on, because every page you want to end on a cliffhanger. So that's more my importance is okay, how can I make this flow well? I do get scared when I see 7 though. That's very rare for me. Okay, 7, all right. Maybe I'll have one page, an issue that has 7. But I always like having a splash somewhere if I can. I feel that's more important to think of, because when you're turning a book, you're oh, cool, splash page. That's the exciting moment that a lot of people are going to see. It's interesting because me and Phil have been writing so much together with the webtoon. And I feel do you think we have a different vibe with panel counts? I feel that's one thing we don't. I feel you do putting more dialogue in a panel, and I put less dialogue in a panel.
I definitely agree. I think our counts aren't too far off. I think we both tend to float in the 4 to 5 panel space, and then every once in a while we'll squeeze a 7 in there. But I definitely agree. I tend to like to fill up the dialogue a little more. I don't think I do too much, but
no, you definitely do. I would yell at you and say you can't do
I'm sure you would yell at me. You have no problem doing that. But another thing is utilizing the medium. With Webtoon, you have a lot more space too for the lettering. So like Kat said, we're using a different letterer for the Webtoon version and the sequential version, and there are some differences in the lettering. There's a little more dialogue you can fit in some places in the Webtoon version that might get cut out in the sequential version. So that's something also to be mindful of, whenever you're writing a script, the different forms that it might take once you have a finished product or multiple different finished products.
So how's that?
Luckily, we knew it was a webtoon, so that was good. We knew it was a webtoon beforehand.
Yeah. So that raises a question too, is that because a webtoon has to be a sort of a standard format panel wise, right? So when you're putting that together in a sequential story in comic book form, does that make it more difficult, or are you changing stuff when you're laying out pages?
We work
originally
backwards.
a sequential. Yeah, you said though.
Yeah, we start with the sequential page and then we break it up into the Webtoon scrolling format. So we are always ready to go when we have the sequential version, when we're doing our printed version. And honestly, it's worked out really well. It makes it very flexible because we use a higher resolution than we normally would for the pages, so that if we have a panel we need to like zoom in on in particular for the webtoon version, or maybe we have to zoom out for like a longer panel, you have to cut it in two. So you have to get a little creative in the way that you break it up. But we definitely think if the goal is to have both a webtoon scroll format and a traditional sequential page, you should definitely work backwards from sequential.
Which I mean is exactly what we wanted to do. I mean, because the whole point was to find an audience on Webtoon, and we love the format of Webtoon. It's a very different medium, but we wanted to marry that. We wanted to DC did it after us, but DC's kind of doing, and they're just like they have a Webtoon now. They're like, oh, let's utilize this medium that has more people reading than traditional comics. So we really wanted to utilize that. It's so interesting because you get comments for every chapter, so that's weird.
That was a real culture shock because
usually
I
love the thought of Jim Lee sitting in his office going, well, Kat and Phil are doing this.
Well, that's what he's thinking.
Definitely. He's watching right now looking for new ideas with his little notebook. But like Kat was saying,
behind you guys with his monitor like Batman. He's watching this right now.
He's like, what can I get next?
Be careful what nuggets of wisdom you throw out there. You don't want DC to beat us to the punch.
He's learning Excel right now.
Like, what is this Excel they're speaking of?
Man, so I really need that Microsoft sponsorship.
We got a question from Hernan Guaderas. Y'all ever do even odd panel count page after page? I personally try to mix and match in a way myself that if I feel like it looks too much, like I said, I try to, unless I can mirror it, so the 2 pages are here, and if I've got 3 panels on this side, maybe I'll mirror the page. But other than that, I try to go from, unless it's an action, and if she's in a 4-page fight, then it might be a lot of panels or few panels depending on what the fight needs. But just for storytelling, I'd rather go with 3 on this page, 6 here. Yeah, I don't want the audience to know what's coming panel wise personally. What about you guys?
I'm obsessed with a 3-panel page. Like just a monster about it. I'm really glad that Matt on All the Devils was the artist, because there were times where he was like, I can't do this in 3 panels. Like, I don't know what you want from me. And I was like, oh, just break it up as you want. I like the idea of it. And so a lot of the 3-panel pages that I got in there, we had to break up together and figure out a better way to make it work. But like, I got to keep a couple of my real precious ones. But I like the way 3-panel pages look, especially when they're right after a really busy page. I feel like it slows everything down. Percy, get off of the desk. And
hi, Percy.
Percy, she doesn't care about anything except being on the desk when I'm using it. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that I actually do to a fault, is that I try to do to fit the odd, and I try to break things up to the point that it's maybe not something that the artist can draw. I'm putting too many actions in a panel, and so that's something that I've actively been watching. But yeah, so I think I do that to a fault.
So I kind of had to play with a couple pages, with the werewolf transition. Instead of doing it as panels, like I wanted that kind of like Hulk transition, like you see Bruce Banner morphing, like, and when Carlos, like he, I don't know if he just never read a Hulk comic, but like he's like, dude, he's like, this isn't a movie. How do you want me to do this in one panel? So I like sent him, I'm like, dude, I'm like, really? I sent him every werewolf transition I ever saw, every Hulk transition I ever saw. I'm like, creative, man.
But, with me, I default to a 5-panel page, and I don't so much worry about the panel count. It's more, do I want, how fast do I want this page to flow, right? If I want it to go fast, like if it's a fight scene or something, I pull back and there's 2 panels or 3 panels, or even a splash page. And then if I really want to slow things down, Cat's right. Getting above 7 is kind of scary. You know, you don't want to have a page that's so dense that, you just, everything comes to a screeching halt. But I've been going through some of my comics here at the house, and are you guys familiar with Archie Goodwin and Walter Simonson's Manhunter?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, this is from 1972, so I'm flipping through it, and I went, wait a minute, 14 panel page, and it worked, and I was like, God damn it!
And it reads great on Comixology too, as a like a not a web comic, but as like an interactive panel to panel thing. Like it's good, and there's detailed panels.
There's two reasons why it works: Walter and Simonson.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like if you have like kind of the opposite. Like if you have a lot of panels in an action sequence, I feel like the less words in those, but like if the action flows and it makes your eye go in the way that you're meant to, it goes faster than you think. Like the pacing is more about like where the words are. If you're stuck reading a chunk of text per panel, like that's going to slow your eye, right? So if in an action shot, if it's like curated to make you flow, it could go very quickly, and then like you could even miss things. So sometimes you have to kind of go back and be like, "Oh, I missed that,"
Well, Barry Windsor Smith did that really well too. Like very similar to the Manhunter stuff that Simonson did in those early Conan issues with Roy Thomas. I mean, just a ton of panels on those pages, full of action and like super clear, super detailed. He has a gift, that guy. He's going to go places. Yeah. I
am almost, I think, on the verge of obsession with the way. Is it Elena Casagrande? Is she the pencil
Black Widow?
on Black Widow? The way she does those multiple, images, it's basically one panel, but you have after images of the actions as the widow moves through flips and stuff and all that. It's so spectacular, and it's not something that we've seen artists do, I think, for a very long time. I mean, I think we probably used to get some of that maybe in some old Daredevils.
I was thinking Daredevil specifically.
80s, early 90s was the last time I think I remember regularly seeing that kind of flow.
So it's I am just like laser. I want my artist to do that on this other thing I'm writing. Like, let's try this, okay? Go read Black Widow.
So good.
It's got great covers by Adam Hughes.
So good, Black Widow. But I also wonder how Kelly Thompson writes that. I've never seen a Kelly Thompson script, because also if you read her Kate Bishop Hawkeye, she had some brilliant paneling you could tell from the scripting, because it was like a detective book. So she'd also, I mean, it was very Jessica Jones. She did the same thing where you like go into one section, is like she targets stuff, and I'm like, oh man, the marriage between art and writer, and obviously Kelly Thompson's doing the same thing with Black Widow. Is so good. She's brilliant, and her artists are brilliant as well.
Yeah.
I missed that. I've got to catch up because I love Kelly's writing, and that sounds amazing.
So Black Widow, yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. Speaking about pacing, I'm crazy for a multiple number of reasons here, but I read an interview with Alan Moore about the number of words per page, where he did some basic math on some old Weisinger Supermans, and he's like, okay, he went through and he counted the words on every page and averaged it out and said, okay, there's this many number of words per page. And then he started breaking that up, and averages out per panel, but you shouldn't have this many. And I will go back and I will count words, and I'm nuts about it. It's crazy.
But name me one Alan Moore comic that was successful.
Only
you
one.
can't do it.
Name me one.
Adding a lot of words.
You can't do it.
Like the Watchmen, like I felt like every panel had like a paragraph, and my dyslexia just went, nope.
It was a graphic novel for sure.
It was.
Heavy on the novel.
Like I
9-panel grid.
like what was it like? Comics help me read, right? That put me back a minute. I'm like, no, I quit.
Especially with the Rorschach, because the font was hard
Oh,
to read
yeah.
too.
Dude,
That had to be
my
rough.
eyes, I think, went cross-eyed. I'm like, is my glasses change right now? Like the prescription go?
That is something that I've noticed too, as I've been going through some of these, older issues that I'm putting back in. Just the density of some of those stories is, I'm like,
it's a 2-hour read. A Claremont X-Men is now a 2-hour read for me. And I'm like, I didn't, like, as a kid, I'd get through this in 5 minutes, and I'm here like 18 minutes getting through a comic, and it's great. It's lovely, but it's like, wow, he wrote a lot.
I did some reverse engineering this week because I was trying to break a story that I had turned in a rough draft. It didn't quite work. I had to like go back and retool some things, and so I was like, well, let me just go like look at some comics that I like and to see if I can kind of reverse engineer how they did it and figure it out. So I looked at so Frank Miller's Batman Year One, Chapter One. And I'm breaking it down, and I'm looking at the scenes, and I'm like, okay, there are 22 scenes in this book, or something crazy like that. And then I looked at like a more modern comic that I also kind of wanted to look at and maybe kind of model this story on. And I was like, oh, there are 5 scenes in this comic, and so it is crazy, like the amount of story that they could put into it. But so talking about that and like the Black Widow stuff and how she, they'll have her bouncing around, because that makes me think of like the Flash, like the really old Carmine Infantino stuff, the super old stuff. Like a lot of those techniques, I think what's cool is when artists today can take those old techniques and make them feel new again in that kind of way. Because I was reading Proctor Valley Road. And it breaks a lot of rules that people would say about modern comics, where it's like, well, you've got to have a scene change on a page turn, and you can't change a scene in the middle of the page. Like, I noticed they'll do that in that book. They'll have
Morrison,
single.
So
yeah, well, that's true. That's true. Yeah, that's true. But it's fascinating to me because it works. Because a lot of those really old comics. And a lot of times a scene will be a panel. And so like you've got 5 or 6 scenes on a page. And that's why they can tell a complete story, take you on a complete journey in 7, 8, 12 pages, whatever. But yeah, Proctor Valley Road really kind of knocked me out looking at that. And you're right, it's Grant. So of course it's going to be interesting. But
there was actually a kind of a discussion on Twitter, Hassan Otsman Elhal. Sorry, every time I say his name, Eisner Award winner, Hassan Otsman Elhal, who was the editor on Crossover Division #1. He was talking about he's seeing, he letters a ton of books, and he is an amazing letterer. He's just awesome. But he's talking about he's seen, hey, you're right. There's some scene changes mid-page, and I got to thinking about my own work. I'm like, why can't I change scene in the middle of the page? And maybe I've done that, and I'm sure somebody's going to grab it before it, but who knows, right?
You definitely can. When I reread the comics in the 80s, they middle of the page, they would do it, and it is kind of the biggest screenwriting, how to write a comic script is from quote unquote Alan Moore, and he was talking about get that page flip, and then you tell me that Grant Morrison is cutting in the middle of the scene, and with their rivalry, I'm wondering if that isn't just him giving the middle finger to Alan Moore. They've got that beautiful wizards who hate each other rivalry, so maybe it isn't because it's best for the story. It's just to tell Alan Moore he can go jump in the Thames,
I've been guilty of it a couple times in the middle, but I also did the transition on purpose because I felt like it was a slight change of the scene. It wasn't like a big major, it had to be a turn of the page. But I mean, again, like you said, like that was something from like the 80s, that I remember. Like a lot of my writing comes from like a Chris Claremont, like inspirational, like that's really where a lot of my knowledge came from is because I grew up on Chris Claremont, so that was like, to me, the epitome of how you write a book, So
Well, did you guys see the YouTube? There was the YouTube documentary on Claremont on the X-Men. It was awesome. If you can find it, watch it, because they talk about how he was kind of this auteur, and he built this, and he built it so well that pretty soon it got so big that it got out of his control, because he was surrounded by Louise Simonson and Nascenti.
Yeah.
And they helped him keep control of, this massive X universe that he was building, from the early 80s, 79 or 80 up until, ultimately he really kind of lost control of it once the image artists, came on, basically.
Yeah.
But it's a really, really good documentary. And I think Claremont, I didn't realize that he had done as much as he had done. So,
I mean, X-Men for sure. Like, he's man. Like,
yeah, he is the reason the X-Men is what they are.
Yeah,
for sure. And just like how people still continue to write the X-Men is because of his bricks. It's interesting. Yes, the X-Men was created before him, but doesn't really it's like, no, that was still
they were
like the
but they were kind of like
episode.
struggling over here.
Yeah.
And he was like, here, let me call it.
Yeah.
Let me make this soap opera.
AC/DC existed before the singer that we all know them as. And that shocks me. The X-Men existed before Chris Claremont took control.
We're saying that the original X-Men by Stan Lee is Bon Scott, and that Chris Claremont is Brian Johnson.
Thank you, because I was not coming up with a name. It was not happening.
We're not going to speak ill of Bon Scott tonight, are we?
Thank you. Dirty deeds done dirt cheap.
I like them both for their own things. Like they both, they have their own unique. And obviously, it's kind of like when you take in Van Halen too. Like you have both versions of Van Halen. You can't really say, like you can have your favorite, but they both have their their attributes that you just like.
Those might be fighting words, Rob. But, totally different bands, good in their own way. We'll agree to disagree.
I would argue both Van Halens are bad.
That's fine. Those are
that is fighting words.
I came to defend Bon Scott, and instead I'm now trashing Van Halen. So.
Well, I mean, you look at Claremont though. He got, he had Dave Cockrum, he had John Byrne. When Byrne was, really kind of coming into his power as a creator. Then there's Paul Smith,
Barry Windsor Smith,
awesome. Barry Windsor Smith on there for a little bit.
Alan Davis.
I mean, he worked with such amazing artists, and that's.
On Excalibur, he had Art Adams, who's one of my personal favorites ever.
Yeah, I like the first 100 run of the Excalibur comics. I love after he took those characters and ran. I was like, I have to go with it.
Hernan says the only X book that matters is Mr. and Mrs. X.
That's a Kelly Thompson book right there, right?
It is a Kelly Thompson book. I'm sorry that the only X book that matters is 5 issues long, but I think Kelly Thompson.
My entire childhood did nothing.
That's the way Jared would do it. In and out.
Yeah.
Go in, trash everything, and bounce. Yep.
He's like, after Kitty Pryde didn't get married, they're like, let's make a book about the marriage that did happen.
So we were talking about panels a while back, and have you guys read Witch Creek Road? It's it was a Kickstarted horror.
Garth is our letter for the webtoon. So
Okay,
he writes that. So
Garth is a really great dude, and Witch Creek Road is horror comics are so hard. Comedy comics are hard. Horror comics are hard. You can get it. Witch Creek Road is the only comic I've read that scared the shit out of me. But
I love Witch Creek Road.
it's
so
very
much.
good. But he does like pages with like 24 panels, 30 panels, and they work. They work because he shows like a whole day in a character's life in these tiny panels, and it's amazing. So if you want to see how an indie writer can use an extraordinary number of panels and it work, check out Witch Creek Road, but don't read it at night.
I would say a big
Is he
reason,
also
too,
the
is
artist?
So
I
it's
believe
Keenan-
he's just the writer.
Yeah, Keenan is the artist for that, but he does letter it though, so I think that's a little bit more helpful. Is that he letters his own book, and you know that you
He
can
can't
get
yell at
vibe.
himself.
Exactly,
He
he can
can.
himself.
He can.
He can make. Yeah, he can be like, "Dang it! Why did I write that? I'm changing it right now."
Stupid writer. Yeah.
Canopus does that as well,
man. Do it
though.
again.
The Scout
Dave-
Comics,
Dave Chisholm?
Yeah. Like there were a few pages there that had just a ton. Like I remember there was
You're
one.
right.
It was like showing all these different things that they had to go through, and it was like just a crap ton of panels. But he handled it really well.
Yeah, that's true. That's great. That's a great sci-fi piece.
Well, yeah, and I think it really comes down to, if as a writer you're going to, ask that of your artist, it has to be kind of this. It has to be a really close collaboration, and then the next page can't have that many panels.
Yeah.
Right? It needs to be. You need to give them a break, right?
And there better be a damn good reason.
Yeah.
It can't be. I made the joke that when you get to the end of the issue, you're like, now it's 14 panels. No,
Yeah.
it can't be that. But there is a reason sometimes to put a shit ton of panels on a page, and you need to censor yourself from doing it too often.
Well, I mean, Jared. I know Jared said he, 3-panel page is what he does, and it sometimes is your Achilles heel. I find myself doing a 3-panel sequence often. It's like, here's the begin state, here's the middle state, here's the end state of this just little 3-panel sequence, and I'll write it. I'll come back later and go, what are you doing? Why do you do that? And it's just, I just love a 3-panel sequence. I mean, I just love a little, like a character standing, they're about to fall, and they've fallen down. I love that. I don't know what it is. I'm nuts. Yes, I know, but I just love it.
What is the Gaiman saying? Your voice is the thing you can't stop yourself from doing. So that's your voice. Jared and you, like, that's your voice, and that's the way you like to create. There's nothing wrong with that.
You're saying there's nothing wrong with me, really?
There's so much wrong, but on the page, I'm not critiquing.
I think that was like the level up that I had with when I was just writing comics and getting an artist on them to when I brought on editors to help me with it, is because like I was like, yeah, this looks good, it works, but is this real estate worth it story wise? Is using this page to just display 3 panels in this interaction, is that going to get the dramatic episode or the story across? Is that going to land? And so I've been super lucky to have editors that have all been really good in terms of not cornering me and not trying to make me write something that I don't write, but to try and get me to utilize it in a good way.
Very nice, Tate. Got 99 problems, but 3-panel setup isn't one.
I don't know if anybody has read anything by Frankie White, but he's a really good buddy of mine, and his new book, Eat My Flesh, Drink My Blood, is entirely 3-panel pages.
Oh, really?
Cool.
Yeah.
He didn't bring that up. He graced us with his presence on Explain Yourself, and he didn't say that.
He's a wild man. Frankie is a wild man. Like you cannot put him into any sort of category because Frankie will just break the rules. And I don't mean to make this like a whole Frankie White appreciation thing, but like
Go for it. We like him.
I mean, Hanan was our editor on Twin Blades, and he edited the script for All the Devils. Yeah,
Nice.
but they Frankie did Project Starless Daydream, right? So that book didn't have the strong narrative line. It sort of broke itself up into interesting bits about the world that the characters were occupying. So it didn't have this straight linear storyline, but it had a story, and it was built off of all these little bits and pieces. He did 20 Fists, which is a fist fighting romance, and then it has this real dark twist in the third issue that he had laid the groundwork for, but I still didn't feel like I saw it coming all the way. It still took me by surprise. And then he's doing things like Eat My Flesh, Drink My Blood. I was talking to him the other day, and he was like, yeah, I think I might do a Kickstarter, but like for 7 days. And he was like, I just want to skip the whole middle part. And I'm like, you're just crazy. You just do shit. You just do whatever you want. And it's something that I respect so much. But yeah, I think Frankie is like the shit. I think the world of Frankie. But yeah, the Eat My Flesh, Drink My Blood is 3 panels per page, the entire 52 pages.
Yeah,
I think
that's amazing. He wore me down. He wore me down. I got the soft cover, and like he came on Explain Yourself, and he told all about it. And he's like, "Yeah, we're only going to do 100 hardcovers, and if only like 50 are done, that's all we're printing." And I was like, "God damn it!"
Well,
I'm a collector. Like I had to go buy it, so I'm going to get both.
It has the Skylar Partridge cover, which is awesome. You know.
Yeah, Sky is phenomenal, but yeah, they're just if we can't get them all in pre-order, they're great. Yeah, Dauntless is doing some real weird. It's impossible to like work with Frankie and do something that's not weird, you know. And I say that in the most heartfelt way because I think the world of Frankie. But
his protagonist in Broken Bear is the worst. She's the worst. And but you're going with her on this adventure that she does not need to be on, but she's on because of 9 terrible decisions. And you're like, I hope she does okay.
Yeah. Frankie's a real force to reckon with. But I like that Dauntless is doing that, is letting him do something as weird as 52 pages or 3-panel pages.
Yeah, and he said it was like a grindhouse horror where by the end everybody's naked, and I was like, all right, I'm sold.
Yeah.
What a pitching machine Frankie is, you know.
Sounds like something Clay would do.
I'm taking notes. Right.
All
right. Well, it is 12:23. Unless we have any comments in the chat, if you have any specific questions you want to ask before we get out of here, please do. But before we do that, let's go back through Cat and Phil one more time. Let people know what you're kickstarting and what they're going to find in your book, and I will put the link up for people to find it.
Well, since I went first last time, I'm going to make Phil go first.
Nice.
So go check out Bi-Visibility, a bisexual comic book anthology. It's the anthology from 20 creators with 9 different stories, ranging from romance to high fantasy, all about the bisexual experience.
You said it perfectly. Like I said earlier,
I got all your buzzwords.
You got all the buzzwords, and also
he's got his Excel sheet open. He's reading it.
That Excel sheet is much longer than what he just said. Well, that's what's great about Bi-Visibility is that there is no pitch. Just go check it out because the title says it all.
When does it end? It's only got like a week left.
A little longer.
Weeks.
So 2 weeks. It ends on the 30th of September.
Okay.
And then we're going to spoil it here. We have another Kickstarter 2 weeks after because we're crazy. So we're doing Slice of Life. We really hate ourselves. If you look at our Excel sheet, we really hate ourselves.
Like she said, we got Slice of Life coming up, the Kickstarter. You could check out you can read it for free on Webtoon right now. Check it out. We really like it. And the Kickstarter is going to have an exclusive story not posted on Webtoon that takes place in the future.
Together.
Yeah, where our main couple is together already. We're really excited about that.
And we have
Nice.
a really cool tier that's coming up for it that we haven't teased anywhere, so we probably won't say until we launch. But we have a really cool tier we're proud of as well.
Cat and Phil, my buddy Will, has a Kickstarter roundtable that he co-hosts on Friday nights at 11. I'm sure he would like to invite you back when that is live.
I think we could put it in our calendar to be
think so.
on to talk some slice of life.
That
Don't they have
sounds
calendars
beautiful.
in Excel as well? I mean, I think they have.
No,
a template
I hope
for
they
I
it.
make
do.
my own calendar in Excel. I have a tab called My Projected Timeline. That's for the next
hate
year
you.
every Monday.
I'm not
When
lying.
you try and print that out, it's like 100 pages.
I don't print it out. Excel's best on the computer.
I really.
Jim Lee's
somebody-
going to print it. You're going to be.
Please.
Oh, Jim Lee's
spreading
gonna
that.
print it.
Yeah.
Somebody tell Microsoft what happened here, because Will and I will be
And Jim
drinking
Lee.
friggin' Cristal in a couple.
Next,
Guys,
they're
we
gonna
making
have
a
all
lot of
the
money.
best like webcams with their laptops.
No. Will and I are at the age we want the worst webcams.
Yeah, exactly.
We want low definition.
Listen, you have the best head of hair, I think, of anybody. And then there's me. I got a built-in yarmulke here.
All right, well, Clay, let's talk about the most important comic book to have ever existed.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah. So the book is called Dead Skins. It's a horror comedy Western. It's Blazing Saddles meets The Walking Dead, or if you prefer, it's as if Robert Rodriguez directed an episode of Deadwood written by a horny Seth Rogen. There's donkey fucking, there's blood. It's the goriest book that Kevin has ever backed on Kickstarter. It could be the goriest book you back on Kickstarter, internet land. And yeah, it's good. There's some good laughs in there. Hopefully some good surprises, some good scares. And I think it's a good time. If you like Garth Ennis books, if you like Rick and Morty, Adult Swim, things like that, I think you'll dig it.
And you just launched that, what, 2 days ago?
Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. And we funded a few hours ago.
Awesome. Congrats,
It's
man.
Good gross fun. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. Yay. Yeah. Right. I'll raise my.
All right, Jared, we did you notice I mirrored it? I'm coming back. Jared started. Jared, take us out.
Yeah, so I am the co-creator and writer of a book called All the Devils Are Here. It is 44 pages of big feelings and big demons getting smacked around. It's like Inception and Constantine set in the worlds of Sucker Punch. It's got 29 more days on Kickstarter. We just crossed, I think, 78% funded.
Nice.
And we've got a bunch of cool tiers still. There's still commissions. There's still script reviews by me, portfolio reviews by Matt. And there's like an RPG tier where we'll play. Matt is somehow developing a D&D style game around the world that we made. I don't know anything about it. I'm the world's worst D&D player, but I'm going to play. If you back the tier, I'll play with you, and you can laugh at me as I'm terrible at it. But yeah, it's a super personal story, and it's really fun, and you should check it out between now and 29 days from now.
Thank you guys very much. Now, here's what Will and I do at the end. You guys came on. You were nice enough to tell us about your campaign. So while you're live, at the end of the show, Will and I will bring up your campaign. So what we're going to do now is do the best we can to talk about the campaigns that are still running. You may hang out with us, or you may say bye-bye and go to bed. I know that it's late, and I don't need to keep you if your bedtime is there. Now, Rob's going to stay because this is his one night of insanity, and he decided to hang with us.
I think I am going to go to sleep, but this was a lot of fun, and I can't wait for less than a month to come back on and talk about some slice of life.
And it is our pleasure. Get some sleep.
I've been asleep for the
Thank
last
you.
hour and a half, but I agree with Kat. This was a lot of fun. Yeah, this was great,
All right.
guys. Thanks for having us.
Get out of here, you
Thanks.
filthy animals.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Nice meeting you, Jared.
Nice meeting y'all. Yeah, and I'm leaving too because I have to work in the morning because I work in a restaurant for my day job. So
Oh.
Saturdays are full game. So I will see y'all soon.
I hope
All right.
you have a, I
Thank
hope you
y'all.
have a great day tomorrow. Nice to meet you, buddy.
Nice to meet y'all.
All right. So, Rob, you hanging?
Oh yeah.
Oh. So
Okay.
I know Destiny New York, we've still got going on. That's Pat Shan's. All right. So I'll pull up the screen. You want to pop us through Destiny New York, Will?
Sure. It is the art book for the 5th anniversary of the Destiny New York saga that Pat has going on here. And it is, I believe it's already funded. Is that right?
Oh, yes. Very, very much already funded.
Where's that updating it from the last time?
From the last time I looked at it. So it's their goal was 8,500. They're at 13,444. Destiny New York, it's basically, if you think of a Harry Potter type magical school, but it's for children who are given prophecies. So you're given a prophecy, you join the school, and you're prepared to carry out your prophecy. Once you've carried out the prophecy, you stay in school while you figure out what the hell you have to do with the rest of your life. Volume 1, I'm in the middle of. The lead character has already fulfilled her destiny and is trying to figure out what life is like. Pat talked to us about it being kind of like a child star type situation. Like everything important they were supposed to do, they already did when they were 13, and now they're 25.
They peaked and now they're sad.
They peaked and now they're sad, and there's a ton of other cool, wonderful stuff going on in it. Definitely worth checking out. I do believe you can catch up on the story within this campaign, so I would check that out if I were you. All right, and what else is running, Will?
Miskatonic High number 12 and the complete Lovecraft PI Miskatonic High crossover is still running. I think it's got 6 days left.
Oh, nice. I did not pull that up. You talk about it, and I will find it.
Well, we had
Mike Shea is Miskatonic,
and DW was Lovecraft PI.
That's
so
right.
They did a crossover, and they had so much fun doing the crossover that they actually wanted to collect it, but they also wanted to give it a little bit more of an epilogue. So I believe this has an epilogue from the Miskatonic High perspective that's so many pages, and then it also has an epilogue from the Lovecraft PI perspective. So it looks like a pretty good book, and Mike's one of those, and I mean this with the utmost respect, one of those crazy guys that are serializing on Kickstarter.
Insane.
Just too wild and crazy guy.
And he's hit number 12, which is pretty awesome. So I'm not worthy.
I think I know somebody else who might have gotten up there.
Miskatonic High is going to pass me and lap me, and I say, God bless Mike. He's amazing. And I'm kind of ignorant on Lovecraft as a rule, but the great thing about Miskatonic High is it's a high school story with magic. Yes, it's based in the Lovecraft world, but if you're ignorant like me, you can still enjoy the story. You don't. But if you do know it, there's Easter eggs and there's stuff that are cool with you, and it's a fun little crossover. Lovecraft PI is like a 30s noir detective story, and the Miskatonic High is present day high school, and so they had the Lovecraft PI guy get frozen and woken up in present time. So that gave the fish out of water comedy of a guy from the 30s dealing with cell phones and stuff. So that was beautiful to me. But the cool thing they did with the epilogue is Mike has no idea what DW did for the epilogue until it was printed. and DW had no idea what Mike did because the characters did branch off and they just wrote their own thing, and they just
It was,
they
yeah,
had
their perspective without confiding.
yeah. So that was pretty cool that what they did. Definitely, if you're a Lovecraftian, you should check it out.
Absolutely.
Oh, we have Blake said, I asked Pat to review his comics and he sent me the whole freaking universe they've written. I'm so stoked to check it out. I think you're very much going to enjoy it, Blake.
Yeah, awesome.
Really do.
And let's see, what do we have? Oh, let's see, going back further, the Lunatic, the Lover, and the Poet. We had
yes, Brian Hawkins. Yes.
Which was a really awesome time.
It was. What is going on with this page?
I don't know.
I had it pulled up, and it's just.
Anyway, while
It's
Kevin's working,
My
while
computer's
Kevin is working
tired.
on the tech.
It's like it's past the witching hour, sir.
The Lunatic, the Lover, and the Poet is a story about a murder. So it's a horror. It's a murder at a Shakespeare play. They're doing the quotes from. Why can I not remember this?
Midnight Summer's Dream?
Yes.
Midsummer Night's Dream.
Midsummer Night's Dream. Yeah, Midsummer Night's Dream. And one of the cast members is the killer. So it's looks really cool. And Brian was a lot of fun to talk to when he was on the show. So I believe it ends on in about 4 days. Is that right?
Yes, it's. I think it's the newest, the closest one to close on my book. Actually, no, we'll get to the next one.
Yeah, it closes on the 29th, so it's got 12 days left.
Basically, that was just a huge lie. It's got almost as many days as Bi-Visibility.
Yeah.
You have time. You have time. You have time for my computer to catch up on the Lunatic, the Lover. Brian did mess me up though because he was having a nice bourbon, and I tried that last campaign, and I was so hungover the next Saturday. So I went back to the wine.
The key is Red Bull and vodka.
No, I can't do Red Bull, man. No, I'm not with you whippersnappers. That's you lose me. We do have Russell Nohelty's
Yes.
Black Market Heroin is closing in
On the 20th, that one is on
3
the
days.
21st.
Russell's a great dude. Check it out. That's within the universe of his novels, actually, and it's about kind of a small-time criminal and fraudster who basically accidentally runs into
Saves the Antichrist accidentally.
accidentally saves the Antichrist and has to deal with it. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's like that the conundrum about would you kill Hitler as a baby?
Which, by the way, is very, very important to Tarts, Devils, and Demagogues. So if you're listening this long, go to your local comic shop and ask them if they've got Tart, Devils, and Demagogues. Because as a time-traveling story, I had to answer whether or not we would kill Hitler, and if we would, he's dead, and if we wouldn't, why?
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
And it's done very, very well.
And quite frankly, I was going to make it Pol Pot. I thought I thought Hitler was too on the nose, so I was going to make it Pol Pot because he killed his own millions of people. And I made a joke at a family, like a Thanksgiving, about something being worse than Pol Pot. And everyone around the table looked at me like, what are you talking about?
You're like, who?
And I pivoted back to Hitler because I was like, well, I'm not gonna write about Pol Pot if nobody knows who he is.
That's the thing. It's like, unless you are really big into history and you studied that stuff, like you don't. I mean, and like, I took a class in college, like strictly on like that, because I am a big like history buff. So like, I would take any kind of history class and go to periods of time and just like focus on that. And there's a lot of things that like you don't know about that like they don't teach you in the general populace, in like high school or so yeah, people don't know other than like the buzzword names.
If you call it general population, we don't think you're in high school, Rob.
Nice.
Touche.
Very nice.
Touche. Touche, Cecil.
And Blake's right. We should have been using Excel. We
Yes,
should
we
have been
definitely
using
should
Excel.
have. This would be easier if Phil could teach me Excel. But Excel reminds me that we have expired Travis Gibbs.
That's right.
Do I have it?
Which
Yeah, I
has
have
not
expired.
yet.
It has not expired. It is live.
Running.
Which, you know what's funny about that is that, like, the first time I heard about it was last week. I was at the Erie Comic Con, and Alan Ellsworth. I don't know if you've recognized the name or not from comic circles, but he's done coloring for a variety, and he's worked with Travis. I didn't know about this book until he mentioned it to me at the con, and I'm like, Travis has another Kickstarter? I'm like, where the shit did that happen?
It's about a world. Our world is now mostly covered with water, and there's only like one island, and oxygen is
very, very hard to get. Yes.
yes. And some
Is
people
yeah.
want to change that.
Yeah. It's as if the entire global world is just like the Hawaiian Islands, and they're fighting over oxygen, and it's just a sci-fi thing. And basically, I haven't read this one, which I'd love getting previews to kind of get an idea. But look at this art; it really has a Moebius feel to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just gorgeous art, and it's kind of cool that Travis is like, some guy came to me and said, I've got an idea for a story. Do you want to write it? And he got really into the story. And so he kind of just gets to play in somebody else's playground too. So I'm really excited to check into this. Unfortunately, I don't know more about it, but it looks like they got Sam Elliott cast, which is always a boon to me. If Travis is running a Kickstarter, I'm in. So I kind of didn't even look at the exact thing, but it's going to be great. So I think that's what we got, right?
That's what we got. Except we do have one other thing.
Ooh.
Somebody here is going to be launching a Kickstarter very, very soon.
Let's talk about Snowpaw.
Yeah, it's not me and it's not Kevin. I wonder who that could be then.
Oh, you mean this guy?
Yeah.
Yes, actually, it came to it. So I submitted on Wednesday. I submitted Wednesday afternoon. Just the bare bones for the page, so I could like finish it and then still kind of promote. And surprisingly, right before I got off my computer this evening, before I went to take the kids to dinner, I got an email saying that it was the pre-launch page, or the page had been approved, so I could do the pre-launch page. So I'm like, oh, now I got to hurry up and put a post out.
So where's your pre-launch page? Let's share it with.
All right, well, we can do the here. Let me drop a link as soon as I find it.
Now, this is this is Snowpaw.
Yes.
This is within the Nightwolf universe. Is this a prequel, a sequel? What are we learning in this?
So this is basically it's basically a prequel spin-off of Nightwolf, featuring Nightwolf's mentor. So this would be her origin story in the 19th century. And, so she grew up on a farm in 19th century Scotland in the Highlands, right around the time where like farmers were starting to leave the Highlands, because of either, famine or just, it was during the turn of the century where like things were, going bad for the farmers. So Snowpaw's, Cyrilla McKinley is her given name. For short, I call her Sere. So she basically is betrothed to a nobleman's son, due to a deal that her father and this nobleman had made to kind of like help save their farm. And she's a very strong-willed girl, and she dreams of adventuring. She doesn't want to be on a farm, or but she also doesn't want to be just some witless housewife. So and for her, like she goes off hunting when, on her own. When in the 19th century, that's not heard of for a woman. She's meant to be more, at that time line. Women are in the kitchen or taking care of the kids or helping with farm work or whatever, so have you. But she has higher aspects, and obviously that her being unknown to her, she is born a werewolf, and so that kind of that wild side, that wild nature, strong-willedness, obviously reflects in her natural nature. Before that she even has turned for the first time after she turns 18.
Oh, that's cool. So we're going to do something for the first time ever. We've got the screen up. We are going to add a notify me on launch. You're going to go from 36 to 37, 38. How did that happen? All right. I have never. I want to be humble here, but I'm worth 2 Kickstarter backers.
So, Rob, I have to comment. Your artist is Mog Park, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The art is spectacular on this.
Extraordinary.
It is just beautiful.
Yeah, Mog. When I approached her, I really had, it was like, I know she had been around the circuit doing cover art, so I've seen some of her sequentials from when she was working with Game of Thrones. Never in a million years would I ever, thought that she would accept. You know what I mean? Like it was like, but even the reason like I had the balls to reach out to her was because she bought my my comics when I was doing a live signing with Henri Campan. She bought them off of him, and so like we got to talking from there. I'm like, okay, well, she obviously is interested in werewolves. She bought my stuff, so she knows about me at this point. I exist to her, so I was floating around her orbit, so to speak. So when I reached out to her, she was like, yeah, man, I love your work and I love werewolves, so let's do it, and it almost verbatim those words. Like I was like, all right, let's do this. Cool. So yeah, it was, it was very kind of like clandestine, if you will, with the two of us working together. And, she's just so very talented, and like her work in itself is so very stylized. Like, there is no other Mog Park, even so, like, even when I first decided like to do a spinoff, originally my Nightwolf artist Carlos was the first choice for if I was going to when I was going to do it, but then I was like, no, I want a female to do it. I want this to be I know it's part of Nightwolf, it's part of the universe. I get that he helped me create this gorgeous world, but I wanted to have a female artist work on this book with me, and I wanted to have like a majority female team, which I ended up putting together because I also wanted a female perspective for this heroine that I wanted. Basically, this story is kind of like I wanted this character that my daughter can look up to, and girls getting into comics and girls who are into comics can look up to this as a heroine that they could like use as a role model for what a strong with a kind soul, you know what I mean, at the same sense, but fierce as well. So that was kind of like where, like, and I'm being a male writer, I wanted to make sure that I was doing it right, and having a male artist, I didn't want it to look like Nightwolf, because Nightwolf has kind of like more of a men's like taste to it, if you will. This, I wanted to go the opposite direction. I mean, it's still, men can enjoy this book. Obviously, it's a gorgeous book, but I also wanted women to really get into it and enjoy, not only just the story, but the art, the look, the natural beauty of the characters, And I think Mog, like, she just killed. Like, the illustrations are gorgeous. I believe it was well, go ahead.
You shared pages with us over the last several months, and just every time you post them, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. She is.
Yeah, and I was so excited. Like, when I would get a page, I would immediately share it to you guys because I was so excited. I was like, I have to share this. I have to share this. And so, and to be able to complement that, I needed somebody coloring wise to be able to to basically pull out the gorgeousness in the line art as well, and not dumb it down, right? So
accentuate it without
exactly
covering it up.
Yeah. So it took me a while to find the colorist. Actually, it took me a lot longer to find a colorist than it did to convince Mog to do this. But when I finally found Bruna and reached out to her, Bruna Costa is my colorist, and she does a gorgeous. I mean, it's almost like, it's like picturesque. Like she made a night scene look like vibrant and bright, even though it's dark, but it's like it's enough detail that she was able to pull out of within her colors to still make everything stand out enough that it even made Ryan Kroboff remember that he's like I never would have expected it, but that's now when somebody says you can't make a night scene too bright. I mean, I could not be more happy with how this book has come together, and I'm so excited finally to get it out there.
When do you expect to launch?
So I'm aiming for October 13th.
Day after my wife's birthday. Good call.
Because so you'll be good and hungover and ready to and give everybody a chance to be first backer.
I will have bought her present, so I'm not my priorities are already.
Your budget's already. Yeah. You'll be resetting your budget.
Yeah.
Rob didn't want to overwhelm her. Okay, that he just.
Yeah, my kid is the 8th and my wife is the 12th. So don't launch on the 10th. You will probably not get my attention.
I'm actually I've actually been lucky, because I've done the last 3 years I've done an October launch. So with Nightwolf issues 1 through 3 and the trade paperback.
Is that on purpose because of a Halloween theme, or is it just happening?
Well, I think mostly yes. I kind of forced myself to that first launch because I kept pushing it because I wasn't ready as far as I wanted to make sure the art was 100% done. And then I was kind of testing the pages, you know what I mean? So it was kind of I want to make sure, I wanted to figure out how to do my since I had failed that Kickstarter prior in 2016. So I wanted, when I was ready to come back to it, and finally Tyler was like, dude, shit or get off the pot, you're know this, you're ready,
Yeah.
So I left for vacation. I think it was the beginning of October. And even while I was on vacation, with my family, while the kid, my daughter was taking a nap and everybody was napping, I'm on my computer, working on my Kickstarter page. So I come back that Sunday, I immediately record my video and I went live in mid October. So it was again, the theme obviously made sense. So I had done another launch after that. It was in June or July. And then that was for issue 4. So 1 through 4. And then I came back again in that October last year, shortly after, for the trade. Obviously, because I had the first 4 issues, I was ready to put a trade together. But it also was okay, this is a very, obviously the Halloween theme made sense. It was that it just worked. Werewolves sell, very well during Halloween because it's. I mean, really.
but they spell it HOWL Owain. That's very important.
Yes. So now with and I did another launch for issue 5 then in this past June. So for me, it was I'm trying to get 2 to 3 a year. So it just happened, the timing. Originally, I think I wanted to launch this one in April, but it didn't work out that way because of
Yeah.
finding between
Life.
artists. Yeah, exactly. So
Global pandemic.
Yeah,
Stuff.
things, things and stuff. But yeah, so I, like Bruna finished the last pages the end of August, coloring wise, and then I hand them off. Dave Lentz, doing it started in June. At the end of June, he had half of the book, or basically the pages that that Bruna had colored, already done. So it was mad at this point. I was like, okay, Bruno, when can you have these done? I need to hand them off. And at that point, it was like, okay, now the book's completely done. I still need to put together, because usually I'm the holdup when it comes to lettering. So now that the lettering's already done, I'm like, well, shit. Now I have to do get all this other stuff ready. And so then I got working on the page, plus with everything else we have going on in life. So it just came down to, it was like, you know what, I could have launched at the end of September, but I think the October time frame really works, and I wanted to give myself some time to be able to have everything, give people the book to read. So I've handed off digitally to people to kind of read, to get some quotes for the page, since it's a new issue of number 1. I wanted to be able to do this right instead of a rush, which I feel like I always am doing. It's always a rush, which I'm sure it still will be. I'm going to set this date, and I'm going to work, and then be like, oh crap, it's like a week away. I need to finish. So that's how the October date kind of got solidified again. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I every year I've done a Halloween bonus. I'm sure I'll do it again, for whatever I end up doing.
What do you do? Send shitty ass candy corn with people?
Yeah.
Hey, candy corn is good.
You're the guy. You're that one guy.
I
had to get candy corn in my Halloween treat because of you.
That's right. It's all me. It's all me.
So Blake says Nightwolf is actually in my massive spooky stack I'm trying to get through for Halloween.
Very nice.
You will enjoy it.
Thank you.
And this is a beautiful hardcover.
Yes.
It really is.
Yes.
It is amazingly well done. I mean,
I could not be more happy with how that came together either. I mean, working with that was it was, for me as a graphic designer, it was fun to do. That's the epitome of graphic design there. You know what I mean? Being able to do something.
I actually had a phone call with Sam at Printlore today talking about this. We're going to do probably at the end of the year a Kickstarter for Tart Submerged. So issues 4, 5, 6, and 7 haven't been collected as a standalone. So we're probably going to do a Kickstarter, and Sam's probably going to put together the hardcover. So
very nice. Yeah,
so Nightwolf and she might have Ryan K. Lindsay's book he did with Comics Tribe might have come up in the conversation.
I'm sure. Well, she definitely came up in the conversation with Sam and I. Oh, there you go. Well, it also will be part of a catch-up tier. So I will have. I'm going to have a tier with the hardcover, and also have the soft covers as well, with different versions of the Snowpaw, because it had so this book not only has so I'm not really, so the single issues are going to be add-ons, whether it's a backer kit or Kickstarter. I haven't decided yet,
Right.
But
Both.
But so probably or at least in some fashion.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm offering this the trade with the single issues of Snowpaw as the catch-up tiers, because this gives you the full story of Snowpaw thus far, at present day. Whereas Snowpaw will take you to her origin, but your 4-page story is included in this. That's focus.
I don't want to take credit for my 4 pages. It was what you wanted. You did come and you said Snowpaw's. How can I say this without spoiling it? This is a very important part of our history that Snowpaw started.
Yeah, it was basically a conversation in issue 4 that I had. It was a director's cut, if you will, that I cut out because it could have been just mentioned. But it's kind of like Rogue One, like how it's mentioned in Star Wars,
Right.
It becomes its own thing. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like how that came. But there's that year 4 pitch, and then
By the way, can I be considered the Rogue One of the Nightwolf universe?
Of course.
I don't want to say it's the best part, but Rogue One is the best part.
My daughter's yelling through the monitor. All right, I'll be right back.
Well,
Okay.
I think, buddy, we're gonna say you go take care of your daughter. We're gonna close it out because it was a blast, but it's 1 o'clock. We got to 2 hours,
Yeah.
and I think that's perfect.
All right, guys. Thanks again.
Have a great
good
night,
one.
buddy.
You too.
Will, you have a good night, sir.
All right, you too, man. Have a
All
good
right.
one.
I will try to close this out because I lost my screen.
Nice.